So for Throwback Thursday, I've mentioned the top 20, and you can look through all the lists on YouTube and on Instagram, not on TikTok because they won't allow some of the music rights. So I've mentioned number 21 was Donovan's Mellow Yellow, number 22 was Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, number 23 was Barry White's Let the Music Play album. Probably quite a surprise, but again, great album, then released in 1976. This album I'm going to mention next was written in 1980, and I've mentioned the artist already in my top 10, which was number 7 was Sign of the Times by Prince. This album, which is an album I love, is called Dirtymind by Prince. Now, Dirtymind is probably not the album most people rate highly. They would probably more rate Purple Rain, they probably rate a lot of other albums more than Prince. But the one thing I love about this album by Prince, it is to me when the Revolution was in their first incarnation. I think this album in 1980 was very influential before 1999 by Prince. 1999 by Prince is a great album, but it's a lot of tracks in it I'm not that keen on. Whereas this album has kind of new wave, bit of punk, a lot of funk, a lot of interesting ideas, quite minimalistic as well. And I think if you like Sign of the Times, this album is really good to listen to first of all. So it was released in 1980, and Dirtymind, at the time Prince was getting very much banned from radio because of his lyrical content. So he could write great songs. If you listen to the For You album, there's some great musicianship. Prince album, I Want to Be Your Lover and so forth, is great, but again, some of the songs are a bit syrupy and are very much of that time. Controversy, the great track, Do Me Baby is a long ballad, but this album I think has some really good songs. So my favourite tracks on this is When You Were Mine, which is like very much a guitar-y song, singer-songwriter style. Uptown, which is a great sort of his idea of him explaining about Minneapolis, where he lived, how they dressed, how they were different, because Minneapolis was obviously very different to LA or New York. Then he has a track called Party Up, which has got this very much, again, this kind of funk jam. Then he's got a track called Head, which obviously was released as a single, but obviously was banned off radio because he's talking about head meaning blowjobs. Again, with this album, there's a lot of comedy within this album. So when he's talking about Dirtymind, Doing It All Night, Uptown, Head, Sister, which is a bit about like incest, which is kind of weird. I think it's a dream. It wasn't about what he did. But Prince showed a lot of his humour in this album, and I think this is why I like the album, because his humour is quite funny. Like, for example, in Uptown, there's a lyric where he goes and talks to a girl, and the girl looks at him and says, are you sure you're not gay? Like that, and it's like this way of, because how he was dressed so flamboyantly. There was a thing like where he's dressed even on this, like he's supposed to have actually turned up on the Rolling Stones tour dressed like this, and he got bottled and actually kicked off stage dressed like this. So imagine like he's wearing like briefs and a bloody like a streaker's jacket. I mean, it was a stalker's jacket. It was just ridiculous. Prince really was playing about with the feminine and masculine, and in this album I think you get that a lot. Like Dirtymind, it could sound like, if you listen to it, you've got this kind of funk new wave, but it also could sound like something which the production could sound like something from Kraftwerk, but with his R&B lyrics to it. And Prince's music here is quite minimalistic, but from 1980 it still sounds quite futuristic. It's very synth based. But the band are really great. I mean, you start seeing like the ideas of the band. I'm going to actually just show you something here as well. I think just to show you what the band was looking like, because all of this stuff was performed by Prince, composed, arranged like as usual. But he had like Dr. Fink was playing on the synthesizers. Lisa Coleman he had this is his band here. So this was Prince. He had Dr. Fink. He had Des. He had Bobby Z, who was a drummer. He then had Andre, Simone and Lisa, and Wendy hadn't joined the group yet. Wendy then joined in 1999 album and Purple Rain. Andre Simone was actually the guy who co-wrote Do Me Baby, and then Andre Simone then ended up doing the New Wave albums. and he ended up then producing Jodie Watley, who he eventually married. With a lot of this here with Prince here, he starts working, again it just shows you that he still is working on the ideas of working on his own still, but then he has the band to back him up. So because by that time he had the band backing him up and they were just as competent as he was. Another thing as well with Prince as well, When You Were Mine, all this stuff, it's very much, you can tell it is young love he talks about. He talks about this idea of how he's, you know, it's probably on the cusp of someone who is going to be majorly famous, and he's building this up by building his repertoire up. And like I say, For You is a great album. It's got very good musicianship, but there's not many good songs on it. Prince, again, I Want to Be Your Lover, I Feel For You, which was then Shaka Khan did a version, and I think Patrice Rushen, I think, was another person done one. Has some good tracks, but there's a lot of stuff which is a bit mediocre. Controversy, which is probably my least favourite Prince album of the early stuff. Controversy, great track, but the rest of it's a bit, again, this is the trouble with Prince. A lot of time he doesn't write good albums. He's very good at singles or little songs, but the albums are good. And I think Dirtymind, really, in his early catalogue, was where he really started to shape his sound more. I think the band was also helpful because it could help him shape his ideas. So where, yes, he wrote everything, but the band could just say, yeah, that's great, but we can just do that. Maybe I'm better at drums. Bobby Z was probably a better drummer than Prince. Keyboard wise, you know, Prince is pretty decent, you know, but Bob, you know, Dr. Fink was probably a better musician. And I think this is where Prince kind of collates it all together. And this is why it's my second favourite Prince album. I won't talk about Purple Rain, all them things, because they're kind of obvious, and I think most people know them albums. But Dirtymind, great album, well worth listening to, and it's very short as well, so it means you can just pick out bits of it. And I think for most people that would be a surprise for Prince people, because most Prince people don't think of this album as highly as I do. But I just think it's one of them albums where he really is where you can hear the genius come together, but the songs are just starting to build up. They're not ready for me yet, but they're getting there. And I think that's where Prince just started learning enough. And I think then Rick James he went on tour with, and I think he learned more about the touring and got better that way. But this is the thing, you know, musicians back then had to craft themselves, get better by their craft by experience instead of just expecting to be brilliant straight off the bat. So yeah, this is my second favourite Prince album, Dirtymind. Please tell me what you think of it.